Hey guys, welcome to my channel, Mukesh's Tech Space. Today I'm going to continue on our Lightsail for Beginners series. Today will be part 2 where I'm going to show you how to connect your AWS Lightsail instance to Serverpilot. We'll also set up an AWS Lightsail instance with Ubuntu, and we'll integrate with Serverpilot and also create our first 2 apps in Serverpilot. So without further ado, let's get right into it.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get started with this episode. Pop open your favorite browser, go to lightsail.aws.amazon.com. It's going to ask you to sign in. So we're going to go ahead and type in your email address. It's going to ask you for the password. Go ahead and sign in. And once you're in, you'll go back to your dashboard for Lightsail. If you remember in my last episode, I showed you the creation of a WordPress instance. I went ahead and just deleted that instance since it was just for test. If you followed along with that and created it, you may want to delete it as well. As you know, any resources that is running in Lightsail will be billable. What we're going to do is create a Ubuntu instance, a bare bones instance, and to do that, we'll click on Create Instance. Again, there's several items to select and pick. I will leave the instance location the same for now. In one of the future episodes, we can talk about what the regions are and what availability zones are. But come down here, we're going to pick Linux, Unix, and then we're going to, instead of one of the pre-made applications, we'll go ahead and click on OS only. And then pick Ubuntu. And we'll go ahead and keep our basic instance selected. The first month is free. And as I mentioned in my last episode, I'd like to keep the naming of the instances using the pre-filled name that Amazon likes to put in here. And I just put something in here. Something like that. Go ahead and hit create. And it's provisioning. And after a couple of minutes, our Ubuntu instance is up and running. Let's go ahead and click on this. You can see that the public IP address is provided. However, that is a dynamic IP address. So it is if you reboot or stop and start your server, that is likely to change. So what we want to do is set up a static IP address. So we're going to click on the networking tab, and then it says here, create static IP address. Click on that and go ahead and give this a server name. And that's what I called it. I called it server. So let's go ahead and change that just to keep the name consistent. Go ahead and create. And there we go. Now we have a static IP address. It's attached to our instance. You can detach it in case you want to change instances. You want to keep the IP address the same, but you want to pick a different instance to attach it to. So you can detach and pick another instance. We only have one instance, so it doesn't show a drop-down, but it would become a drop-down. Let's go ahead and go back to home. Click on our instance. Now you can see that the IP address has changed, and now that's our static IP address. So let's go ahead and jump over to Serverpilot.io. This is a service that allows, basically what it will do is connect Serverpilot configuration management tool to the AWS Lightsail instance, the My Ubuntu server. So here, let's go ahead and look at the pricing screen. This one, there's 3 different plans. The free plan is what we're going to play with. It gives you unlimited servers that it can connect to, unlimited websites that you can create within a server. It only allows one SSH SFTP user, so if you're a one-person team, this should be okay. But if you intend to have a larger team, then you may want to look at one of these paid models. One of the other items that it doesn't provide, which one of the paid plans will give you, is ability to create free SSL certificates. But what we're going to do is walk through in a future part, we'll walk through setup of Let's Encrypt SSL certificate and how to set that up with your server. So we want to go ahead and get sign up going. And let's see, sign up and give it an email address. And the password. And that should get you into Serverpilot. And as you can see, it's blank right now, but the first thing to do is connect a server. Go back here, so the first thing it asks for, here, just a couple of things to note here. The server must be Ubuntu 16.04, and it should be blank. There shouldn't be anything installed on it, and that's what we had selected. We selected our Ubuntu instance, and it was 16.04. Let's come back here. It needs the server's IP address, so let's copy this IP address. Copy. There we go. Paste. We don't know our root password, so what we will do is leave this blank, and we can select I do not have a root password. Oh no. Well, I guess that's fine. Yeah, I do not. This is what you want to select. And then we say Ubuntu, my Ubuntu server, and then choose an SFTP password. So as part of the setup process, Serverpilot will create a single user that's available in our plan, and it's called Serverpilot. And you want to pick a password for that. So type a secure password and enable SSH password authentication if it's currently disabled. So leave that checked. Go ahead and connect, and what it will do next is give us a command to run on our server. So this is the command. You want to copy it in its entirety. Control C. Come back to your Ubuntu instance. Connect using SSH. And let's pull that window in. You can see SSH is right here. What I'm going to do is run that command that we pasted. We just right click. So what you do is just right click, and it should start running the command that we pasted. And it will go through a bunch of steps. While it's doing this, let's pop over to the Serverpilot screen. And you'll see here that the status as well. As soon as Serverpilot detects that it's got a connection to that server, it will start configuring it. And there we go. So just wait for this to happen. All right, well, once the Serverpilot is done configuring the server, it'll come to the screen. Great, you're ready to create your first app on this server. And if we look back at the SSH window, everything is done. Exit out of this window for now. Okay. And we're back down here. And you have several tabs here. Apps is where you will see all the apps that you've configured, any account modifications. There's a support tab and a logout. So let's go ahead and click on create your first app. All right, let's give it a name. My WP site. Give it a domain name. What we're going to use here is a domain name that you may have. You can type that here. If you haven't registered a domain name, you can go ahead and sign one up on any of the many registrars. I like to use name.com. for all my domain registrations. It's very intuitive. I like them. I've been using them for several years now. All right, let's continue creating the app. Create an app providing your domain name. You can come to the DNS records screen. Once you've registered the domain, you can log into that account, come to the DNS records. We want to manage that DNS and update its IP address. So go ahead and pick the domain that you want. Come here, click on edit, and we're going to come back here, copy the IP address that we had created on Lightsail, and paste it, and then click on update. I also have another entry with an asterisk, so we'll go ahead and update that as well. Okay, and we'll go ahead and type in www.inspired.us. That's my domain. If you want this to be a WordPress site, you'll pick this, which we will. My Ubuntu server, and give it a admin username. I don't suggest using the word the user admin, as that is more of a security risk. Everybody knows that as a default username, so you're going to go ahead and create another one. So it's not foolproof, but at least it's one less item that hackers have to get into your WordPress site. Give it a password and an email. And you could just leave the default PHP 7.1 selected. A lot of times there are some PHP 7.0 and above is pretty new. So there are some plugins, there could be some plugins that you end up using that aren't compatible with the newer versions of PHP. In that case, what you want to do is just come back here and select PHP 5.6. But we'll go ahead and leave it to 7.1. These are more secure versions of PHP. But if all else fails, if there's some issues, there's a plugin that you're using that doesn't work, then you can come back here and just pick 5.6. You want to pick your server and the only user you have. So go ahead and hit create. Oh, okay. The app name is required and can only have lowercase. So we'll go ahead and make this lowercase and satisfy it. Let's create the app. Here we go. So it's pretty quick. By the time you head over to Ubuntu server, it's pretty quick. Your app is already ready to go. As you can see here, once you have an app running, it has several tabs up here. The stats, you may want to be on the business plan or the coach plan. I guess the business plan to see stats, logs as well. Databases. So here you'll see that it created a database for us and a user for us. Domain. And these are the two domains. As you recall, we typed in www.inspired.us, but it'll also attach inspired.us. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to make sure that the *inspired.us, my domain name, was also pointing. What we'll do is in one of our future videos, we will set up a redirect where only one domain is really active. If somebody types in inspired.us, it redirects to www.inspired.us. SSL, as I was mentioning earlier, the coach plan is where you get free SSL certificates, but we'll show you how to connect an SSL certificate in a later video. In the settings, this is where you can modify certain items of your server setup. Predominantly, the main thing that you might deal with is the PHP version in case you run into issues with plugins and such. There is a great deal of documentation provided by Serverpilot, so I recommend you go through this. And then, of course, the last one is delete. Make sure you only do this if you know you don't need the application anymore. One thing in the settings we want to keep note of is the web root. This is the root path of your website, and all the files, any files you put in public, can be accessible then by typing in the domain. So let's go ahead and see what happens if I do www.inspired.us. So as you saw, I can't reach my server just yet, and this may happen to you as well. And probably the main reason is that if you had just, as part of the setup, updated the DNS of your domain name, it may take a while for it to actually update and propagate throughout the internet and to update the DNS. So even though you typed this in, it's not working. What you can do is check up on it. If you open up a command prompt and just hit ping and then the domain name that you want to check, if it returns back with the IP address of your Lightsail instance, that means it's resolving. If it doesn't, that means it hasn't updated yet, and specifically to your DNS. Sometimes what you could do is type in this command, ipconfig space /flush DNS. And then let's clear our screen and then type in the ping command again. You can hit the up arrow key to see the previous commands, and let's see if it's resolving. It looks like it's not resolving yet. So I'm going to pick back up the next step on this video once we have a fully resolved domain. All right, so we're back. The name server resolution did update, and I was able to just type in www.inspired.us, and our server responded, and here's our default WordPress site that we just created. Let me just show you that ping, what it looks like. If you run into this, and this is a great way to check it. So let me just show you. So once it does resolve, you'll be able to see that it's pointing to www.inspired.us is pointing to our IP address. It's going to show these request timeout, and that's just fine because our server is secure and it doesn't respond to these ping requests, which sometimes is also considered a security risk. So our configuration by default turns this off. So we're going to go ahead and close that window. And you can always, you can now go to your server /wp admin. And if you recall the user that we set up and the password, and you should be able to log in. And there we go. Now you can manage your WordPress site, set it up, and do what you want. Let me just quickly, before we end the video, show you the power of Serverpilot. Now that we have this set up, let's say we want to create a second website. And we just go to Apps, Create App, give it a name, my second WP site. Give it a domain name. Let's say we want to give it a subdomain. And so we will do something like 2.inspired.us. That could be anything. You could even have a new domain name. So let's type that in right. Pick WordPress, my second website. We could just go ahead and keep the same user. I'm going to delete all these instances, so it doesn't matter. Create that, and then go ahead and create the app. Oh, it needs an email. So let's go ahead and give it the email, create the app. So give it a second or two. And if my domain name configured correctly, I should be able to go to 2.inspired.us. Oh, it's not working. All right, let's go ahead and give it a second. There we go. My second WordPress. So within the same Lightsail instance, now I have two sites running. And so with this, I'm going to go ahead and stop the video. In the next episode, we will work on setting up the SSH client. I'll show you how to download an SSH client, configure it, and connect to your Lightsail instance. And we'll also set up the Let's Encrypt SSL. So I'll show you those two things in the next video.
Alright guys, hopefully you found that useful and you liked the video. If you did, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and also click on that bell icon so you'll get notified when I publish more videos. In the next video, in part 3, we'll install an SSH client on your Windows or your Mac computer, and we'll connect that up to your instance so you can log in and do any specific commands from your computer and you don't have to log into the dashboard. So keep on the lookout for that.